No matter where you are in the world, the chances are very high that you'll be in close proximity to a location with a dark, haunting past. Some locations hold on to their ghosts, whispers in the dark, shadows that move when no one's watching. And when mysteries go unsolved, they don't just disappear. They become legends, passed down through generations. From abandoned towns swallowed by time to off-limits sites steeped in tragedy, we've uncovered 15 of the world's most haunted locations, places so eerie, so untouchable, that you'll never get permission to step inside. But that won't stop you from wondering what lurks within. Let's start off with number 15, Chaonei No. 8, China. Few places in Beijing inspire as much whispered fear as Chaonei No. 81, a mansion so terrifying it's simply been left to rot. No one really knows who built it, but early records have mysteriously disappeared. How convenient for a haunted house. One legend claims a British priest commissioned the house, only to vanish without a trace. Another tells of a Kuomintang officer's mistress who hanged herself from the rafters, her cries echoing through the halls to this day. But the most chilling story? 3 drunken builders once knocked through a wall, stumbled inside, and were never seen again. Just gone. When the Red Guards took over the property during the Cultural Revolution, they fled in terror after just 3 nights, claiming they heard blood-curdling screams. To this day, even the bravest ghost hunters refuse to step inside after dark. Number 14, Chateau de Brissac, France. France is known for the Eiffel Tower, wine, and its grand castles. But Chateau de Brissac comes with a sinister guest, La Dame Verte, or in English, the Green Lady. Once Charlotte de Brissac, an illegitimate daughter of King Charles II, her life ended in bloody betrayal. When her husband discovered her affair, he butchered her within the chateau's stone walls. Her spirit never moved on. Today, she roams the tower of the chapel, but she's no ordinary specter. Those who have seen her describe a hollowed-out face, her nose and eyes missing, leaving behind a grotesque, skull-like mask. Visitors who dare to stay overnight report waking to whispers, cold hands brushing against their skin, and an overwhelming sense of being watched. Despite its ghostly reputation, the chateau remains a popular attraction. But if you visit, take this advice. If you see a woman in green staring at you from the shadows, don't look too closely. Number 13, Obvodny Canal, Russia. Some places just feel wrong. The Obvodny Canal in St. Petersburg. Petersburg is one of them. From the moment construction began in 1769, workers complained of blinding headaches, violent outbursts, and sudden deaths. Something about this place was off, and when a nearby road was built in 1920, the unease turned to horror. Buried beneath the earth, workers discovered granite slabs, believed to be the tombstones of women slaughtered by Swedish knights in the 13th century. Not long after, the bridge over the canal gained a grim reputation. People began jumping, not just once or twice, but in droves. Survivors, disoriented and terrified, claimed they had no idea why they jumped. Some even described feeling pulled by an unseen force. Now known as Suicide Canal, the area remains a chilling mystery. Is it a mass hysteria phenomenon or something far worse? Whatever it is, don't linger too long. You might feel the pull too. Number 12, Monte Cristo, Homestead, Australia. If ghosts had a playground, Monte Cristo Homestead would be it. This Victorian-era manor in Junee has witnessed so much death and suffering that the hauntings seem almost inevitable. The original owner, Elizabeth Crawley, became a recluse after her husband's death, spending 23 years locked away in an upstairs room. Locals say her presence still lingers, but she's just one of many. The most chilling stories involve a pregnant maid pushed from the balcony, a stable boy burned alive, and a mentally unstable son chained in an outhouse for 3 decades. Then there's the caretaker, shot dead on the property. Visitors report flickering lights, eerie whispers, and the sound of chains rattling in empty halls. Some claim an invisible force shoves them as they walk through doorways. The homestead now operates as a museum, but those who dare to stay overnight often leave with an uneasy feeling, because here, the past refuses to stay buried. Number 11. The Myrtles Plantation, United States. Some places carry history, others wear it like a ghostly shroud. The Myrtles Plantation in Louisiana is the latter, its walls steeped in tragedy and paranormal whispers. The most infamous spirit? Chloe, an enslaved woman who allegedly had her ear cut off as punishment for eavesdropping. Seeking revenge, she baked a poisoned birthday cake, killing the plantation owner's children. Soon after, she was hanged by fellow slaves. Chloe's ghost is said to still wander the house, appearing in mirrors and photographs. Visitors report finding child-sized handprints reappearing on a certain mirror, no matter how often it's cleaned. But she's not the only restless soul here. In the 1800s, William Drew Winter, a later owner, was shot on the veranda. He crawled inside, climbing the staircase before collapsing on the 17th step. Today, countless visitors hear phantom footsteps ascending, only for them to stop suddenly, right where Winter took his last breath. Number 10. Hoia Baciu Forest, Romania. Welcome to Hoia Baciu, the Bermuda Triangle of Transylvania, where nature itself twists into the bizarre. Trees grow in unnatural spirals, and at the heart of the forest lies a perfectly circular dead zone where no plants dare to sprout. Science has no real answers, only theories, none of which explain the shepherd who vanished into the woods with 200 sheep, never to be seen again. One story tells of a young girl who disappeared, only to re-emerge 5 years later, wearing the same clothes, untouched by time. Then there's the military technician who reported a UFO sighting here in 1968, only to be fired for daring to speak up. Some say this forest is a portal to another dimension. Others believe it's cursed. Either way, the air crackles with an energy that makes even the most skeptical visitors hesitate before stepping inside. And if you do, don't expect to come back unchanged. Well, our advice is simple. First, do your research before visiting this forest. Number 9. Poveglia Island, Italy. Off the coast of Venice lies an island where the dead outnumber the living, because no one dares to live there anymore. Poveglia began as a quarantine zone for bubonic plague victims, with 160,000 bodies dumped into mass graves. Later, criminals were dragged here to be executed. But the island's true horror came in the 20th century, when a psychiatric hospital opened under the rule of a sadistic doctor. Patients whispered of seeing ghosts, of feeling unseen hands tightening around their throats. The doctor dismissed their fears until he too claimed to be haunted. Driven mad, he leaped from the hospital's bell tower, meeting his own gruesome end. Though the bell was removed long ago, locals swear they still hear it tolling in the dead of night. Today, Poveglia is completely off limits, its crumbling asylum and plague pits a forbidden zone. But if you're nearby, listen closely, because the island's ghosts never left. Number 8. Castle of Good Hope, South Africa. With over 350 years of blood-stained history, the Castle of Good Hope isn't just South Africa's oldest colonial structure, it's also one of its most haunted. Over the centuries, this imposing fortress has served as a military base, a prison, a torture chamber, and an execution site. The walls have absorbed generations of suffering, and those who perished here never truly left. The most famous ghost is that of Peter van Noot, an 18th century governor who dropped dead just hours after a condemned man cursed him on the gallows. His spectral form is said to prowl the castle, forever bound to the place where he met his sudden end. Guards frequently report blood-curdling screams, jangling chains, and shadowy figures moving in the dimly lit hallways. Many refuse to patrol inside at night, preferring the relative safety of the outer grounds. After all, not everything within these walls is content to remain unseen. Number 7. Eden Brown Estate, St. Kitts and Nevis. In 1822, Eden Brown Estate was meant to be the setting of a grand wedding. Instead, it became the site of a tragic, unexplained duel. On the day of the ceremony, the groom and his best man turned their weapons on each other. Both men died before vows could be exchanged. The bride, Julia Higgins, never recovered. Heartbroken, she lived in isolation on the estate until her death. But death didn't free her. To this day, locals report seeing Julia's spirit wandering the crumbling ruins, mourning the life she lost. Some claim to hear ghostly sobs drifting through the empty plantation house. And she's not alone. The estate played a key role in the brutal treatment of enslaved people before the 1833 Act of Emancipation, and their restless spirits are said to linger too. If you visit, be prepared. You might not be the only one standing in the ruins. Number 6. Fort George, the Citadel, Canada. Built by the British between 1796 and 1799, Fort George has seen centuries of violence, betrayal, and bloodshed. During the War of 1812, American forces ambushed the fort, reducing it to ruins, except for one lone building. But the horror didn't end there. Indigenous warriors fought fiercely against Anglo-Saxon invaders, leaving behind a battleground soaked in history and death. Today, the fort is one of Canada's most haunted sites. Visitors often spot ghostly soldiers briskly marching into rooms, only to vanish without a trace. A spectral young girl is known to hold hands with tourists before disappearing into thin air. But the most unsettling encounters involve the tall man, a shadowy figure lurking behind bunk beds, and the man in white, who silently reclines on beds, watching guests without a word. Fort George isn't just a historical landmark. It's a place where the past refuses to rest. And if you visit, you might just find yourself face to face with it. Number 5. The Tower of London, England. If ghosts had a VIP list, the Tower of London would be their ultimate haunt. This fortress has seen centuries of executions, imprisonments, and betrayals, and its ghosts refuse to rest. Anne Boleyn, beheaded in 1536, is often seen wandering the halls, her severed head tucked under her arm. The tormented spirits of the two princes in the tower, Edward and Richard, are spotted clutching hands, forever trapped in childhood. Visitors report icy chills, ghostly whispers, and unseen hands tapping them on the shoulder. Henry VI is said to appear at midnight in the chapel, while the spectral form of Guy Fawkes lingers where he was tortured. Even Sir Walter Raleigh's ghost seems reluctant to leave. With at least 13 recorded hauntings, the tower is less of a historical monument and more of a ghost convention. Fancy a visit? Just don't be surprised if you leave with an extra shadow trailing behind you. All right, guys, now let's talk about the Number 4. La Isla de las Muñecas, Mexico. Deep in the canals of Xochimilco, just south of Mexico City, sits an island straight out of a nightmare. In the 1950s, Don Julian Santana Barrera abandoned his family and moved to this isolated patch of land, claiming he had discovered the body of a drowned girl in the murky waters. Nearby, a doll floated aimlessly. Believing it belonged to the girl's spirit, Barrera hung it from a tree as an offering. But one doll wasn't enough. Over the years, he collected hundreds, stringing them from branches, nailing them to walls, and scattering them along the ground. Weathered by time, their cracked faces and empty eyes give the island an unsettling presence. Some say the dolls whisper, their heads turn, their limbs twitch. In 2001, Barrera himself was found dead, right where he claimed to have seen the drowned girl decades earlier. Was it a coincidence? Or had the island finally claimed him too? Well, we don't know, but we hate dolls. Number 3. La Noria Cemetery, Chile. Abandoned mining towns aren't uncommon in Chile, but La Noria is different. It isn't the rusting machinery or crumbling houses that scare people away. It's the dead who won't stay buried. Located in the Atacama Desert, La Noria's cemetery is a chilling sight. Strong winds, grave robbers, and scavenging animals have left coffins exposed, with skeletal remains eerily visible under the relentless sun. But the real terror comes after dark. Witnesses claim to have seen figures sitting bolt upright in their open graves. Blood-curdling screams echo across the desert, sending even the bravest explorers running. The town itself is nearly impossible to reach, with barely any roads and an unforgiving desert stretching in all directions. And those who do make it to the cemetery rarely stay long, because something in La Noria watches, and it doesn't want visitors. Number 2. Aokigahara Forest, Japan. Beneath the towering peak of Mount Fuji, a forest so dense exists that even the wind struggles to pass through. Aokigahara, known as the Sea of Trees, is eerily silent, save for the occasional rustling of unseen movements. But what makes this forest truly terrifying isn't its silence, it's its reputation. Since the 1950s, more than 500 people have taken their own lives here, earning Aokigahara the grim nickname of Suicide Forest. Compasses are said to malfunction due to underground iron deposits, leaving visitors disoriented. Some mark their trails with tape, desperate to ensure they can find their way back. Locals refuse to enter after dark, and hikers often report seeing figures lurking between the trees or hearing distant whispers with no visible source. Whether it's the restless spirits of those who perished or the eerie atmosphere playing tricks on the mind, one thing is certain: Aokigahara is not a place to wander alone. Number 1. Leap Castle, Ireland. Leap Castle has earned its reputation as one of the most haunted places in Ireland, and for good reason. In a particularly gruesome act of family drama, a member of the brutal O'Carroll clan murdered his own brother during Mass, staining the chapel in blood and history. From that moment on, the bloody chapel became a focal point of ghostly activity, with the slain priest's spirit wandering the halls, whispering prayers that no one could decipher. But that's not the castle's darkest secret. During a renovation in the early 1900s, workers stumbled upon a hidden dungeon filled with hundreds of human remains. The dungeon wasn't just a holding cell, it was a death trap. Prisoners were dropped through a hidden chute, impaling themselves on wooden spikes below. With so much blood spilled within these walls, it's no wonder Leap Castle remains a hotspot for paranormal encounters. If ghosts exist, they're definitely here. If you have enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon in the next one.